No, I'm good. Good evening. It is 7 o'clock, so I will call to order this meeting of the Noblesville Common Council. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. Sparts, if you will lead us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Ms. Lees, if you will do the roll call.
Mr. Ayer. Mr. Boyce.
Present.
Mr. Davis.
Present.
Mr. O'Connor.
Present.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Schwartz.
Present.
Mr. Smith.
Present.
Mr. Sparks.
Present.
Ms. Wiles.
Present.
Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We are going to move from the agenda and do a recognition of our state championship teams. And so I'm going to come down. And again, students, we're going to try not to mess up your names, but we apologize if we do. We're going to ask you to come up. I'm going to go stand right down there. And if you'll come up, I'll hand you your certificate. And then if all the team members will stay up, lined up here, we'll take one big group picture for each team each time. So.
Is there a name? Yeah, this is dangerous.
Okay, it is. So unfortunately, Mayor Jensen cannot be here with us this evening, but he has put together proclamations for each of the teams. So I'm going to read that, and then we'll do the handing out of the awards for each of the different teams. So I have to speak to the microphone, correct? So, yes. We are here this evening honoring the Noblesville High School girls varsity cross country team on Tuesday, December 6th. Whereas the city of Noblesville celebrates the NHS girls varsity cross country team and their victorious win over the reigning state champion Columbus North, making the Millers the 2022 IHSAA girls varsity cross country state champions. And whereas the NHS Millers finished their season undefeated in Indiana with their first state title and the second highest winning total in state history, posting wins in every round of the tournament. And whereas the dedication and commitment and hard work of all the members of the team contributed to a successful season, and whereas head coach Aaron Becker, assistant coaches AJ Snyder and Hannah Dwyer, and managers Gabriella Jellinson, Gracelyn Kinneman, and athletic directors Leah Woldridge and Rich Champion were integral in guiding the team to victory through their coaching, training, and support. And whereas team member parents, faculty, student body, and the Noblesville community were amazing supporters, cheering the NHS girls varsity cross-country Millers throughout the season. And whereas the entire community of Noblesville and its surrounding area admire, respect, and are proud of the NHS girls varsity cross-country team state champions. Now, therefore, I, Chris Jensen, Mayor of the City of Noblesville, the state of Indiana, do hereby call upon all the citizens to join the community in recognizing and congratulating our 2022 NHS girls varsity cross-country team.
Ainsley Applegate, Kennedy Applegate, yeah, if you just want to come on over, yep, this way. Brinkley Cooper, Riley Flynn, Gretchen Graham, Paige Hazelrig, Brooke Leahy, Nadia Perez, Summer Rempe, Ella Workner.
Moving on to the Noblesville High School boys varsity soccer team. Whereas the city of Noblesville celebrates the NHS boys varsity soccer team's victorious win over Columbus North, making the Millers the 2022 IHSAA 3A state champions. And whereas the NHS Millers finished the season with a 16-3-3 record and won back-to-back state titles, making Noblesville the first school with the most IHSAA state championships in Hamilton County. And whereas the dedication and commitment and hard work of all the team members contributed to a successful season. And whereas head coach Ken Dolowski, goalkeeper and assistant varsity coach Jake Hart, assistant coach Thomas Doring, Phil Keller, Sean Webster, and athletic trainer Leah Lysick, Gerald Mickler, and Ben Patrick, student managers Addie Cooley, Kaylin Hart, Kylie Pepperman, Anna Neal, Amelia Kiner, and Katie Wong, and athletic directors Leah Woolridge and Rich Champion were integral in guiding the team to victory through their coaching, training, and support. And whereas team member parents, faculty, student body, and the Noblesville community were amazing supporters, cheering the NHS Millers throughout the season, and whereas the entire community of Noblesville and its surrounding areas admire, respect, and are proud of the back-to-back NHS boys varsity soccer team state champions. Now, therefore, I, Chris Jensen, Mayor of the City of Noblesville, of the State of Indiana, do hereby call upon the citizens to join the community in recognizing and congratulating our 2022 NHS boys varsity soccer team.
Noah Adams, Noah Bernat, Ashton Craig, Sam Divis, Adam Eberhardt, Dominic Fisher, Brady Freyer, Jake Hall, Sam Holland, Blake Horn, Landon Huber, Clay Janes, Declan Jensky, Jake Johns, Corey Klimek, Owen Miha, Pavlos Michaeloff, Jackson Montgomery, Luke Odell, Owen Ott, Noel Pena, Alex Persh, Max Reason, Ethan Stonebreaker, Cole Thompson, AJ Tipner, Miles Tucker, Gavin Vogelsong, Dugan Webster, and Keller Willis.
And last but certainly not least, honoring the Noblesville High School girls varsity soccer team. Whereas the city of Noblesville celebrates the NHS girls varsity soccer team's victorious win over Carmel, making the Millers the 2022 IHSAA state champions. And whereas the NHS Millers finished the season with a 20-1 record and secured their third state championship in 4 years and the fourth championship for the program. And whereas the dedication, commitment, and hard work of all the team members contributed to a successful season. And whereas head coach Mike Brady, assistant coaches Kristen Herzl, Carson Roush, athletic trainers Lee Lysick, athletic directors Leah Woolridge and Rich Champion were integral in guiding the team to victory through their coaching, training, and support. And whereas team member parents, faculty, student body, and the Noblesville community were amazing supporters, cheering the NHS Millers throughout the season. And whereas the entire community of Noblesville and its surrounding area admire, respect, and are proud of the back-to-back NHS girls varsity soccer team state champions. Now, therefore, I, Chris Jensen, Mayor of the City of Noblesville and the State of Indiana, do hereby call upon the citizens to join the community in recognizing and congratulating our 2022 NHS girls varsity soccer team.
Lauren Adam, Sam Addison, Joe Amich, Lily Alt, Sadie Black, Olivia Bowe, Mia Brake, Ava Bramblett, Kaylee Cunningham, Sydney Elliott, Cadence Fleck, Tori Goodwin, Emma Gutconnect, Meskrem James, Cadence Lauk, Lauren Maresh, Delaney Martin, Merritt McLaughlin, Ashlyn McNitt, Eva Montgomery, Olivia Olszewski, Atlee Pittman, Anna Reynolds, Allie Royer, Stella Scroggin, Brielle Seifert, Megan Simmons, Grace Taskey, Meredith Tipner, Josie Williams, Bella Wyatt, and Nadia Zabrowski. Yep. Next on the agenda, approval of the executive session memorandum from November 22nd, 2022.
Move to approve. Second.
There's a motion to approve the memorandum and a second. Can I have a hand vote? Abstain. 8-0. Approval of the minutes from November 22nd, 2022.
So move. Second.
There is an approval and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Abstaining.
Okay. 7 to 1 abstention. Approval of the agenda for tonight.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. Petitions or comments by citizens who are present. Do you have any? There are none so far. If anybody does, there are slips out in the lobby, and you can give them to Miss Lees. Councilman reports.
Mr. O'Connor, I believe you're going to give the Roads Committee report this evening.
Yes, Madam President, thank you. Roads Committee met December 2nd. Quite a lengthy list of things happening in the city. I'll try to keep this brief. The street rehabilitation project for 22 is complete. The great news we got today is we were awarded $1 million from the Community Crossing Matching Grant, so that means the state will award us $1 million and the city will match that with $1 million. So that entails paving that we'll do in 23 on Allisonville Road from Summerwood to Wellington Parkway, the entire Stony Ridge subdivision, parts of North Harbor, Howe Place subdivision, and a few other corridors in the city that need some updating. So that's great news for the citizens. The 146th Street over Allisonville interchange, the bid letting is expected to happen early 23 and construction anticipated in spring of 24, and that will necessitate a 90-day closing of Allisonville Road at some point. So stay tuned for that, but that project is moving forward. The NDOT projects, everybody's seen 146th, 131st are open, as is 126th. 141st Street, that is going to move to a right-in, right-out, if you haven't seen that in the news. So the stoplights will be coming out, and they'll temporarily be a right-in, right-out until the project is rebid in the fall of '23, so they'll probably start construction in '24. So that will be the last intersection for improvement on that leg of the project. State Road 3238 roundabout, if you've gone on 3238, you've noticed that it is now open for traffic. There are some construction pieces that will need to be taken care of through the winter. There'll be permanent lighting in the first quarter 23. So that's moving ahead. The State Road 32 River Road roundabout should be complete in July of 2023, so that'll be the next piece of that project. Roundabout at State Road at Oakmont, there will be tree clearing happening this fall, and utility work's expected to take a year. So the construction on that probably start in '23 and completion late '23 or '24. Let's see. There, the construction for the downtown, this is something that's going to be happening from 6th Street to 16th Street, which is going to necessitate a closing for 120 days. The engineering department is going to work diligently to try to keep the public posted on when the closings are going to occur. But this is a long overdue reconstruction project on 32. And we'll be coordinating with them on some other projects as at State Road 37 and 186th Street. But wait, there's more. State Road 38 at Bowden, that is happening in the spring of '24. Probably the biggest thing that we're seeing right now is phase 1 of Pleasant Street. Tree clearings happening and utility relocation, but things are moving along pretty rapidly. The phase 2 bid opening's planned for September of '23. So you'll see continued progress there. The Little Chicago Road Trail over Morris Lake is expected to be bid in May of '23, which will rehabilitate the bridge and then widen the pedestrian bridge over the causeway. That's expected to be finished in '24. And the Kerrigan Road over Morris Trail, that is about complete. So, as is the Levee Trail, if you've been on either one of those, they're both nice improvements. The Nickel Plate Trail, which we were awarded $3 million for from Indiana Department of Natural Resources, will bid. We actually got a lower bid than was anticipated, so I think we'll be able to do some other things along the trail, which will be good. Other than that, there are a few other things, Madam President, but suffice to say there's quite a bit of road construction. So the engineering department is coming up with a map that you'll be able to see on the website. So we're going to do the best we can to try to let people know when these road closures are going to be occurring. So that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor.
You're welcome.
Any questions with Mr. O'Connor or anyone else on the roads committee? Okay. We'll move on to wastewater. Mr. Sparks.
Yeah, wastewater committee, they met yesterday, December 5th. Jonathan gave us an update on a force main damage along 211th Street, and he gave us an overview of the 2023 budget, and that's about it. Pretty simple.
Okay. And we'll hear more about that budget
Yes, we'll hear about
later this
that
evening.
tonight, yeah.
Any questions of Mr. Sparks and the wastewater committee? No? We'll move on to parks. Mr. Schwartz.
Parks meets tomorrow. Okay, so no report. For this time, next time. So then we'll go to Mr. Davis and the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. We met December 1st. Greg O'Connor, Darren Peterson, Aaron Smith, and myself. Chuck Haberman discussed with us an economic development agreement with SMC Corporation of America. Brandon Bennett talked about fiscal actions needed, budget revision funded by additional revenue from golf operations. Matt Light discussed the fiscal action for outside legal services. Aaron Head discussed the fiscal action for Christmas decorations and lighting at Seminary Park. Ian Zalgowski discussed another fiscal action for drainage ditch assessments. And Adam Hedden discussed IT office modifications and storage and Microsoft Teams equipment for fire stations. And Jeff Spalding discussed another fiscal action of OFA office modifications. Brad Arnold discussed with us parking enforcement fiscal actions. And Brad Arnold also discussed a replacement of 2 damaged police vehicles that was funded by insurance proceeds. That and the claims come to the council with a positive recommendation, favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Davis or the Finance Committee?
Madam President,
Mr. O'Connor?
I move we approve the claims as submitted.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the claims as submitted. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Thank you very much. Previously discussed ordinance. Council to consider ordinance number 73-11-22, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the City of Noblesville, Indiana, taxable economic development revenue bonds, Series 2022, and authorizing and improving other actions in respect thereto. Mrs. Smith.
Good evening, everyone. This ordinance authorizes the issuance of bonds for the Promenade Trails project located at the northwest corner of State Road 32 and Mill Creek Road. As a reminder, this project will include 59 cottage-style rental homes, 151 apartment units with related amenities for those 55 and older. The developer will purchase the bonds in an amount not to exceed $1,900,000. The bond has a maximum interest rate at 8% and will be financed over 9 years. Proceeds of the bond will be used for the construction of stormwater improvements and a multi-use path along Mill Creek Road. No changes have been made to the ordinance since initial reading, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Any questions of Mrs. Smith? Mr. O'Connor?
Just one, Amy, what's the estimated start of construction on this? Do you have an idea?
I think spring, but I can
Okay.
find out and confirm for you.
That's all I have.
Any other questions?
Madam President, I'd move we approve ordinance 73-11-22 as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 73-11-22 as presented. This is a roll call vote. Ms. Lees.
Mr. Boyce?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Peterson?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Sparks?
Aye.
Ms. Wiles?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nay. The ordinance is approved.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
New ordinances for discussion. Council to consider ordinance number 74-12-22, an ordinance approving an additional appropriation in the parking meter fund to provide additional funding for cost of parking management services engaged after the annual budget was adopted and establishing a public hearing.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Good evening, Mr. Zelgowski.
Hi, good evening. You guys are going to be seeing a lot of me tonight. You'll notice that I own most of the agenda here. The reason for that being we're getting close to the end of the year. Being a municipal government, our budget is not only a management tool, but also a regulatory and legal requirement. And although, departments come with their budget towards the end of 2021, as 2022 has gone on, Robert Burns wrote Best Laid Schemes of Mice and Men, things don't always go according to plan. So we're getting close to the end of the year. We ask departments to take a look at their budgets, try to predict where they're going to be ending up. If they're in the red on any of their expense series, asking them to submit requests to get those things corrected. So what you're going to be seeing here tonight is just a lot of actions trying to get things right-sized before the end of the year, given that this is one of the final two remaining council meetings, we were, hitting crunch time with these. So the first item that you're going to see here is related to the parking meter fund. You guys are all very familiar with the city's parking program. When we adopted the budget, we were going to be undertaking that program ourselves internally, but we decided to go with a third-party vendor. That has resulted in additional expenses throughout the year. We've had to do some software updates, updates to equipment in the parking garages. So this is just a request to do additional appropriations for that parking meter fund.
Okay, thank you. Questions of Mr. Zagowski?
Madam President,
Mr. O'Connor?
I'd move that we establish a public hearing for ordinance 74-12-22 at our regularly scheduled December 22nd meeting.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to establish a public hearing for ordinance number 74-12-22 at our next regular meeting. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can just stay right there. Council to consider ordinance number 75-12-22, an ordinance approving an additional appropriation in the Cumulative Capital Development Fund to authorize the expenditure of insurance proceeds deposited into the fund and establishing a public hearing.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Mr. Zagowski.
Hello again. So this one is a little bit of better news. We did have 2 police vehicles that required replacement due to accidents. But the fortunate thing here, those were paid for in entirely by proceeds from insurance revenue. So I think we received about $78,000 in insurance revenue, and replacing those 2 police vehicles just came in just shy of that, within a couple $100s. So this was just asking for that approval to spend those monies on those police cars that needed to be replaced.
Thank you. Any questions?
Madam President,
Mr. Smith.
I move that we establish a public hearing for ordinance number 75-12-22 at our next regular meeting.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to establish a public hearing for ordinance number 75-12-22 at our next regular meeting. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Thank you very much. Council to consider ordinance number 76-12-22, an ordinance approving an additional appropriation in the Parks Program Fund to authorize the expenditure of additional revenue collected due to the growth in the city's golf operations, which has generated more cost, and establishing a public hearing.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Mr. Zagowski.
Yeah, so news just keeps getting better. Our golf operations this year far exceeded our expectations. Revenues were way up. Golf is having just a wonderful time. While there are some fixed costs associated with that, there's also variable costs. So the more people that are golfing, you're going to have more upkeep on the grounds, more maintenance on the golf carts, things of that nature. So as our revenue has gone up, expenditures have gone up in lockstep, and we're just asking for the ability to spend that additional revenue on keeping the golf courses up to date.
Madam President,
Mr. O'Connor.
I'd move that we establish a public hearing for ordinance 76-12-22 at our December 22nd meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to establish a public hearing for ordinance 76-12-22 at our next regular meeting. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0.
Thank you.
Council to consider ordinance number 77-12-22, an ordinance amending ordinance number 41-05-5-05 to include amendments regarding the electronic ground sign for City Hall at 16 South 10th Street.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Ms. Eshelman, good evening.
Good evening. Many of you may or may not know, the sign that is out in front of City Hall was constructed in 2008. It was one of the first electronic message centers that were actually built in the city of Noblesville. It was permitted at the time it was constructed. It met all the regulations. And then the planning department completely rewrote the sign ordinance in 2009. At that point, that sign became a legal non-conforming sign because it did not meet any of the regulations that we established with the new sign code. So that sign is starting to show its age, so they are looking for options to replace it. And we were before you with a request to amend the GUO for this City Hall to allow 6 waivers from the sign ordinance, to allow a ground sign in the DT zoning district, to allow an electronic sign in the DT zoning district, allow a reduction of the setback of the sign from 10 feet to 5 feet, increase the maximum sign height to 7 feet, and to increase the permitted sign area, and to also allow an electronic sign that is larger than 30% of the sign face. The exhibit before you is an example of the sign that they are proposing to install. It was heard at Plan Commission and comes to you with a favorable recommendation, 9-0. They would like to begin construction on the sign as quickly as possible, so we are asking that you suspend the rules. Yes.
Is it the same size or pretty close to the same size?
It's 2 feet taller, and the sign area is probably close to between 20 and 30 square feet larger. So the sign cabinet, the electronic sign cabinet gains almost the entirety of that 2 feet of height increase. The current sign says City of Noblesville right under the limestone cap. You can see we're relocating the identifier to the bottom of the sign. They are trying to reuse as much of the existing sign as possible, so the pillars that are there, they will try to match the brick that's there. They're reusing the base and the cap for the existing sign.
Other questions of Ms. Ashburn?
It would be good to get the city in compliance with its own standards. So I would move that we waive the rules and pass ordinance 78-12-22. Whoop, wrong one. Or my 77, sorry.
I was second
On first reading.
It's been moved and seconded to waive the rules and pass ordinance 77-12-22 on first reading. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0.
Madam President,
Mr. O'Connor?
I move we approve ordinance 77-12-22 as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 77-12-22 as presented. This is a roll call vote. Ms. Leeds?
Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor.
Aye.
Mr. Peterson.
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Sparks.
Aye.
Mr. Boyce.
Aye.
Ms. Wild.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nay. The ordinance is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council to consider ordinance number 78-12-22, an ordinance adopting a change of zoning from R1 single-family residential and PB Plan Business to R5 multifamily residential and PB Plan Business for approximately 34 acres south of State Road 32, which is Westfield Road, and east of Hazeldale Road.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Ms. Yelton, good evening.
Good evening. The item before you again does contain 34 acres. As you can see by the zoning map, the majority of it in the yellow is zoned R1. There is a small portion of it currently zoned PB Plan Business. The surrounding land uses do include to the east mostly residential, larger lot. To the south you have larger lot residential as well as agricultural uses. To the east you do have some residential plus agricultural uses, and to the north it is Pebblebrook Village, to the west of Little Chicago Road, and immediately north of this site is the Promenade Plan Development, which again includes commercial and residential uses. The applicant is requesting a change of zoning from the R1 to R5 and from the PB to PB in a different area. So basically overlaying the zoning areas on the map. The red area here is the area that's approximately containing 12 acres, and that's the portion that's being requested to be rezoned to PB. The remaining acreage, which is roughly 22 acres, would be rezoned to R5. The comprehensive master plan does indicate this area as commercial neighborhood, which would permit commercial uses as well as residential uses. The Plan Commission did recommend approval of this change of zoning by a vote of 9-0. With that, I will ask if you have any questions of staff. If not, Jim Adams is present here this evening if you have any questions of the applicant.
Any questions of Ms. Shelton? Mr. O'Connor?
Joy's saying that all fits within the overlay that's in place now, correct?
That is correct. We're looking at eventually coming back in a few months. We're still working out details with NDOT on improvements to 32 and Hazeldale Road. So once we kind of get a final answer, we can finish doing what will be a plan development that will come back to the council. Right now, it is tentatively scheduled for the Plan Commission meeting in September. How about January?
September 23?
No.
Kidding.
In January of 2023, which then would bring it to the council in February.
Other questions, Ms. Shelton? Does the petitioner, any questions of the petitioner, or would the petitioner like to make any comments? All right, seeing none, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Miscellaneous item number 1, council to consider resolution RC-54-22, a resolution approving an economic development agreement with SMC Corporation of America. Mr. Haberman. Good evening.
Excited to share a new project with our friends at SMC tonight. They have a project that they brought forward earlier this year that's really 3 phases that got us to this point for the project. So they have a business unit in Napa, California, and they're going to relocate that operation here to Noblesville. They're also going to expand global R&D division within Noblesville, and then additional investments to increase their production capacity through automation technologies. So all that together gets us to our project, which is the construction of a 27,000 square foot state-of-the-art clean room within their current facility there on 146th Street. That state-of-the-art clean room and additional improvements that I mentioned through automation technology will be just over $30 million investment, and they will create 288 new jobs with an average salary of $59,000 a year, which is pretty outstanding and right in line with the vision of Noblesville and where we're planning to go. So to support this growth, we've agreed on a 10-year declining tax abatement on their investment. The interesting part about this is the type of clean room and the scale of the project, we're uncertain on how it's going to be assessed. So the economic development agreement reflects either route that they take. So if the clean room improvement is assessed as real property, it will be, we'll still abate that. We anticipate the entire project will be assessed as private or personal property, so that'll be covered as well. So you'll see that, which is a little bit different than normal abatement agreements that we have. So in summary, the total project is just over $30 million investment, 288 new jobs with an average salary of $59,000, and so that'll bring us to a total new job creation of 1,157 jobs by 2032. So really exciting project that we're excited about.
Any questions of Mr. Haberman?
No, Madam President, we had a fairly lively discussion in Finance Committee about this. It's exciting to see them bring some companies from elsewhere to Noblesville, and I think that's just going to be the start of additional growth in the area. So with that, I'd recommend I'd make a motion to approve Resolution RC-54-22.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve Resolution RC-54-22 as presented. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Thank you very much. Council to consider Resolution RC-55-22, a resolution approving real and personal property tax abatements for SMC Corporation of America. Mr. Haberman.
This is part of the procedural process to get us to approve the tax abatement, so
So this is part 2.
it's part 2.
Part two. Madam President, I'd move we approve Resolution RC-55-22 as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve Resolution RC-55-22. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council to hear an overview of the 2023 utility budget with Mr. Murgo. Good evening.
Good evening, honorable members of the council, Madam President. I want to keep things high level. We provided a high level summary of the utility budget for 2023. We provided a more in-depth review and detailed review with Councilor Sparks and the wastewater committee. So some key items I wanted to draw your attention to in the budget overview that, just going through the summary, the 2023 operating expenditures we called out are anticipated to exceed the annual revenues from the sewer rates. So right off the bat, you'll see that this is very different from the budget that OFA presents. Since we are an enterprise budget, it's approached differently. The explanation for this is, the last rate increase was occurred in 2020, and we don't anticipate the next increase to occur no sooner than mid-2024. So for that 4-year period, we do feel that we are in line for revenues to meet that period's operating expenditures. Right now, for this next year, we're looking at an overall increase of 5.3% over the base budget. That is in line with price indices. Just a handful of noteworthy items worth calling out. Obviously, there's an increase in outside services in general. 2 that hit us particularly hard are sludge disposal, the treated solids that we need to dispose of, as well as utility rates that are going up, that we use a lot of electricity and energy costs. Salaries is another item. Both the cost of living increase to match with the citywide cost of living increase. Addition to, we created new position titles this year, and we established performance benchmarks to allow for more proactive recognition of excellent job performance and years of service through promotions to staff and to encourage longevity of staff members. And finally, we created a new project coordinator position. We feel that this is necessary to support the utility capital program, with the understanding that proper management of capital projects, a staff member dedicated to management of planning, coordinating with designers, proactively coordinating with bidding processes is actually going to result in significant savings and should pay for itself many times over. You'll note another big change in the table that the stormwater budget versus the collection system budget, there's a large transfer of costs between those two budgets. We are doing this to allow for more accurate assessment of the, to more accurately reflect the stormwater costs. Keep in mind that generally that is pretty much the same staff and the same equipment that is doing that work. So we've spent more time to really understand what is the percent allocation that the staff members and that equipment is doing in each department, and that'll allow a more accurate assessment of stormwater only fees that going into the future, particularly for some of these neighborhoods that Fishers may be providing sewer service in the future. And the last item that's of note, this budget is in line with budgets that were provided in previous years. And again, I wanted to be very clear that these revenues are based on sewer rates. So we do not show tap fees in this estimate. Generally, because one thought was because we have no control over tap fees. But another thought is, which lines actually pretty well up with the capital budget. The capital budget that we're presenting is actually just one portion of the capital budget that we're considering entirely. giving some additional thought to this, I really kind of break our capital budget into 4 different areas. So one would be the depreciation funds, replacing, repairing items that we currently have that are depreciating. The next would be, and this is all based on where the monies are coming from, bond proceeds. The final 2 would be kind of everything else, which I would actually break into 2 areas. Growth, which would probably growth-related projects, which we would probably tie to those tap fees. And then the last would be strategic spend down of reserves, or that worst-case scenario, rainy day fund, if it was ever needed. We're recognizing that I think in the future budgets, we would like to have for a more full, complete picture to the council. But there's also a balance we understand between the transparency and sometimes a level of discretion. Sometimes there's an interest from either consultants or either contractors who would like to get a sense of what projects are being estimated at dollar amounts. So we really wanted to work very carefully and cautiously with OFA and the mayor's office to for next year's budget that will present a more complete picture of what we anticipate for the capital spend in particular, and possibly even tap fees for that fuller perspective on revenues for the 2024 budget.
Thank you. Questions of Mr. McGo?
Great work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council to receive notice of the 2023 appointments from Ms. Lees.
Good evening. It's that time of year, if we're doing end of year things. Your appointments to the tree board, 2 appointments to the facade grant review committee, an appointment to the plan commission, and 2 appointments to the redevelopment commission will expire at the end of the year. And so I'm just letting you know about that, and you'll have the opportunity to vote on those appointments at your next meeting.
Thank you very much. Transfers. Council to consider transfer TA-14-22, an appropriation transfer in the Parks Program Fund to align the budget with growth in the city's golf operations, which has generated more revenue and cost. Mr. Zalgowski.
Yeah, hi again. So this is a companion transfer to Ordinance 76-1222. We do have an amount in contingency for the golf program of about $80,000. We're not completely using that contingency amount. It would have made this whole situation a lot more complex if we used the full 80,000. So we're only using 40,000 of that amount. So the other 40,000 remaining will revert at the end of the year. I don't believe that we're going to end up needing to spend that additionally. So this is just continuing to cover the additional expenses in the golf program using that contingency.
Questions of Mr. Zalgowski?
Madam President,
Mr. O'Connor?
I move we approve transfer TA-14-22.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve transfer TA-14-22 as presented. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Council to consider transfer TA-15-22, an appropriation transfer in the general fund to allocate funding for outside legal services in the law department. Mr. Zalgowski.
So this is a follow-up to an August 12th fiscal action where we had asked for some appropriation transfers for the legal department. The legal department is a relatively new department, and we still have a large reliance on outside legal counsel. Those are associated with pretty high costs, so we came in a little short on that August 12th estimate. We're just asking for an additional transfer to cover the legal expenses throughout the rest of the year.
Questions?
Madam President,
Mr. Smith.
I move that we approve transfer TA-15-22.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve transfer TA-15-22 as presented. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Thank you very much. There's another page. There's more. Council to consider transfer TA-16-22, an appropriation transfer in the Downtown Development Fund to allocate funding for decorations and lighting for Seminary Park, which looks gorgeous, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I've read the comments, people are really loving it. So this is standard protocol. Downtown District Committee wanted to do some additional lighting at Seminary Park. With that, we needed to spend $13,000 that is budgeted for the downtown district fund. And that is about 1/3 of what it costs to light Seminary Park. I do think, Brandon, you're here, we self-reported that we have the largest lit living Christmas tree in the state of Indiana. Yes. So don't fact check that, but it is pretty big. People are loving it. It's very pretty out there.
Madam President,
Mr. O'Connor.
I move that we approve transfer TA-1622 as presented.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to approve transfer TA-16-22 as presented. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Council to consider transfer TA-17-22, an appropriation transfer in the general fund to allocate funding for the 2022 ditch assessments. Mr. Zolkowski.
So ditch assessments are generally pretty predictable. We had $70,000 budgeted this year out of the Board of Works Fund to cover those ditch assessments. However, the county did do some ditch reconstruction, so those came with additional expenses on those assessments of about just shy of $40,000. So we're just asking to move some money from contingency into the Board of Works Fund to cover those expenses.
Questions?
Madam President, I would move to approve transfer TA-1722.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve transfer TA-17-22 as presented. Hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Council to consider transfer TA-18-22, an appropriation transfer in the general fund to allocate funding for office modifications and storage for the Information Technology Department and Microsoft Teams equipment for the city fire stations. Mr. Zolkowski.
Yep, this is entirely a transfer within IT's budget. It's a two-parter. So the first part is that they were borrowing some furniture from, I believe, our planning department. Planning has requested that furniture back. So IT would like to replace that furniture so that they're not sitting on the floor. The other part of that, probably more important, is that we would like to outfit the fire stations with our Teams equipment, so that would allow our fire stations to coordinate with each other remotely over the internet more efficiently than they're able to now. So not only would that help them with training and meetings, but also disaster response and emergency response, they'd be able to coordinate better with those Teams protocols.
Madam President,
Mr. Smith.
I move that we approve transfer TA-18-22. Second?
It has been moved and seconded to approve transfer TA-18-22 as presented. This hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Council to consider transfer TA-19-22, an appropriation transfer in the general fund to allocate funding for office modifications in the Office of Finance and Accounting. Mr. Zolkowski.
Yep, this one, I guess a little bit more personal. So the Office of Finance and Accounting, we converted a conference room into an office space for additional personnel. Yours truly. When they say converted, we turned the conference table 90 degrees, and I've been working at the conference table since I started at the city. So, you know, paper is starting to pile and stuff. It's about time that we probably get a proper desk in there. So this is just asking to move some of those contingency funds to OFA so we could buy some furniture.
Any questions?
Madam President, I would move to approve TA-19-22.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve transfer TA-19-22. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Council to consider transfer TA-20-22, an appropriation transfer in the parking meter fund to align the budget with costs of parking management services engaged after the annual budget was adopted. Mr. Zolkowski.
Yep, similar to the golf transfer, we have contingency money set aside for the parking meter fund. We are tapping into that to cover the shortness of the parking meter fund this year. To counter that, we do expense a subsidy into the parking meter fund from the police department. It's looking like we won't need to use that subsidy, or if we do use it, it'll be a very small amount just to get us at our minimum cash reserves. So yes, this is just a companion to that ordinance that was presented earlier.
Okay, questions?
Madam President,
Mr. O'Connor?
I would move that we approve transfer TA-20-22 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve transfer TA-20-22 as presented. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. I would say I'm very glad that these were not roll call votes.
Yeah.
It could be a long meeting.
Yeah. Me too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. With that, we have come to the end of our agenda and for council comments.
I have one. Declan and I went to go to Federal Hill to ice skate the first day that it was open, and we had a great time. So everybody should make use of the ice skating rink open in Federal Hill right now. It was a great time.
Again, I will say Seminary Park looks gorgeous, as does Federal Hill and all of those decorations. I want to apologize, I did not introduce Mr. Dick subbing in for Mr. Hughes this evening, so thank you for being here. I'm glad that we didn't have to utilize you very much, so that's good. Anything else?
Just to have all those student athletes up here that accomplished all they did, and they have 3 state championship teams in Noblesville, is quite an accomplishment. So kudos to them and their families and the coaches. That's not something that happens very often. So good for them. Hopefully we'll continue to roll, and maybe we'll see something happen in basketball or football. So we'll see.
Yes. I didn't get a chance to say it when they were here, but according to Twitter, Ava Bramblett has been named an All-American by United Soccer Coaches for the 2nd time in her career, which is pretty amazing. And then Sam Davis has also been named to the an All-American by the United Soccer Coaches. So we've got some great student athletes here in the city of Noblesville. So pretty awesome. With that, the meeting is adjourned.